Hi, this is Irene Owens, and this is week 7 of the summer of 2012. And today we're going to be talking about leadership in nursing. And I'd like to start off to be a leader. If we were in class right now, I would be asking you if you could just have one adjective that described leadership in your opinion. We could go around the room, and there's 25 of us, and we could all come up with a different adjective that we have seen in practice or we would like to be ourselves when we see ourselves in practice. So here are some clinical pearls that I thought was, if you don't get anything out of this except for this, I think you'll be doing great. I think it's important to know what type of leader that you want to be as you do your reading, which is in part of Chapter 6 and Chapter 14 in Claywell. It'll tell you the type of leaders and the style of different leaderships that they have identified in research. And I think it's also important to know what is important when you become the leader. What kinds of characteristics, what kind of attributes that you will impart to the people that you're going to be working with. I think it's also important that you understand all people of all cultures, and culture diversity should be looked at with a positive instead of a negative, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in this lecture. Use your own emotional intelligence when others don't. And if you don't know what emotional intelligence is, we're going to go over that today. And there's some attributes to emotional intelligence that leaders have, that leaders instinctively have in their characters, that is important. It cannot always be your way. Very, very important. You know, we have to be able to listen to others and invite their ideas and be creative with how we are going to approach different situations when you're a leader. And the final question should always be, no matter what clinical situation that you're in, as a leader, what will benefit my patient? What will benefit his patient care, the patient outcomes, and the overall satisfaction that the family and the patient hold dear? So when we look at leaders, managers, and followers. No one role is more important than the other one. But when we look at leaders, we look at the influence that they influence patients, they influence families and others toward a vision or a goal. They empower others. They communicate a sense of direction, and they demonstrate that self-confidence as they are leading. So you might ask yourself, what is a leader? A leader is someone in authority to lead others to accomplish a goal. A leader needs to be able to motivate others to accomplish a goal, while at the same time they encourage others to work toward their own professional goals. And that leader, as we look back under our clinical pearls, that one leader is always going to ask what is going to benefit the patient, and especially when you're a leader in nursing. So why is leadership style so important? Leadership style impacts the motivation of employees, and they can impact those employees either positively or negatively. And studies have shown that roughly 70% of work group performance is a direct reflection of a leader's effort to understand employees and to match a leadership style to those employees' needs and goals. We mentioned emotional intelligence, and if you look at page 91 in your Claywell LPN to RN transition, this is a Dan Goldman, PhD, co-director of the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence at Rutgers. He wrote a book in 1995, and he basically said that there are 4 domains of emotional intelligence, and we're going to go over those. But he defined it as the ability to effectively manage ourselves and our relationships effectively. And how is that important as we manage ourselves? Well, we look at where we are in a given situation, whether it is a work situation, environment, whether it is a social environment, and we guide our actions, our thoughts, our words in accordance with our emotional intelligence. So the 5 capabilities of emotional intelligence, and this is by Daniel Goleman. These 4 major domains. The first one is that we all need to be self-aware. We need to be our ability to read and to understand what's going on with ourselves and to recognize their impact on our work performance in our different relationships. And this can be used whether in personal or professional. And if you kind of relate it to your professional life, you know, we all have relationships that we're in, whether husbands or wives or mothers, sisters, daughters, and every time that we have a situation, if we're able to read and understand what's happening and recognizing what's going to happen if I say a certain thing, how that's going to affect the situation, and also going to affect my relationship with that person. I think that's maybe an easier way to understand it. But we also have to have self-awareness too when we work in the workplace, because we want to, my doggie's crying right now, so let me pause for just a second and let him out. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. My oldest boxer, Cooper, his name's Cooper, and every time I get on this, he wants to cry and go outside. I think he just wants attention. So anyway, so we have to be aware of our feelings, our emotions, especially in the work environment. Let's say there may be something that the patient is not exactly doing what you think he needs to do, and so we have to really we have to watch our words, we have to watch our actions in promoting the best health for that patient, no matter how we feel. The next is self-management, and that's our ability to maintain self-control while remaining flexible, honest, optimistic, and sustain those behaviors to improve performance. We have to be able to manage ourselves as we go about talking to our CNAs, talking to our techs, and not be negative. There's so much negativity in nursing, and you see it all the time, but those ones that I want you to gravitate to are all those that you see in nursing that love nursing, that are optimistic about nursing. They can be realistic. We all can be realistic. We all have problems. There's problems in nursing. There's problems with patient care. However, we can be optimistic in that we can change that. We have the power, and that's part of self-management in emotional intelligence. The next one is motivation. This is a passion to work for reasons that are beyond money and status. And there's a propensity to pursue goals with energy and persistence. And that's where you are right now. You all have come from an LPN coming into an RN role, and surely you're not in nursing because of the money or the status of it. It's basically that you have goals in your life, and you at this point have that energy and that persistence and then that stick-to-itiveness to make it. The next one is empathy. Empathy is our ability to empathize with others and understand the social dynamics in our organizations and with our clients. And that's one of the capabilities of emotional intelligence. when we look at that, we say, okay, when we work with others, where is that person coming from? If I was in that person's shoes, or maybe there's a situation that you really need to check, why is that person acting the way he is? That's part of being a leader and part of keeping that emotional intelligence in check. As leaders are to impact others, and whether it's in the workplace or with family or friends. And the last one is social skill. It's our ability to find common ground and to build rapport. We all need to build rapport with each other, and we all need to recognize that everybody's needs are different, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes, we cut each other short, and we look at always the weaknesses and not the strengths that people have. So when we measure a leader's impact, David McClelland conducted a study at Harvard and found that leaders with strengths in the emotional intelligence areas, the ones we just went over, were far more effective than those who lacked those strengths. So when you go back and you look on page 91 in Claywell and you look at the different domains and you say, okay, I need to be self-aware, I need to manage myself, I need to have a social awareness of what's going on, and that relationship management, that empathy that we talked about, and how important that is. It's a lot easier to look at other people, but great leaders are always looking at themselves and always trying to make themselves better, so that they can lead and encourage others and give them the positive feedback that they need. McClellan was researching the linkages between leadership, emotional intelligence, climate, and performance when he did his study at Harvard. So he looked at style and performance. A leader's style and employee performance are linked by the employee's experience of the organizational climate. So whatever that organizational climate, if it's negative, then there's going to be negativity. If it's a positive climate, one that fosters creativity, one that fosters a knowledge base, one that fosters a yearning for evidence-based practice, then that's what's going to happen all the way down the line, from the leader down to the employees. Research has also shown that there's a high correlation between a positive climate and an increased productivity. So always positive, even though those bad days that we all have, it's always good to look at one positive thing that you can go home with. And what a leader does can drive a climate to be productive or unproductive. So a leader is the driver. A leader is caring for not for himself or not for monetary gain, but for the managers and the followers. And especially, go back to the question that I had before, especially for the patients that we care for. So there's leaders, managers, and followers. On page 89 in Claywell, it basically said that these are all complementary to each other, and they are. If leaders have a great attitude, then managers will, and all down the line, also as the followers. So when we look at characteristics of a leader, we're looking at competence. That leader is competent in the work that needs to be done. That leader is trustworthy. You want to be able to go into that leader's office and make sure that conversation stays in that office. The leader is self-assured. The leader has decision-making ability and is not afraid to exercise it when he or she needs to. And they have the skills to prioritize. because you're going to prioritize every single day as you are the leader, and leaders have to. It's basically a lot of times they may be in practice and they may have a well-scheduled day, but then there's always interference that comes in. So they have to be able to prioritize. These are some tasks. This slide talks about tasks of leadership, and this is envisioning goals, affirming values of themselves and others, motivating others, managing others, and achieving workable unity between staff members and themselves, developing that trust relationship. You have to be able to trust leaders. People are going to have to be able to trust you as you go out into the workforce as an RN. Task of leadership is also explaining, making sure that everybody understands why a decision was made, and serving as a symbol or a role model, representing the group themselves. And also the task of leadership is always to renew themselves. We all get burnt out, we all get tired, and it's important that that the leader never forget that she needs to take care of herself, just like you need to take care of yourself every single day. Management provides the structure and direction necessary to accomplish goals and outcomes which are known, and where there is a system in place to achieve those outcomes. Let me go back to that slide. We all are managers. We're managers of care. So we provide that structure for our patient, the direction. I'm just giving you an example. The direction to accomplish the goals and outcomes sounds like the nursing care plan, doesn't it? Which they are known, and where there's a system in order to achieve those outcomes. So we're all managers. The leadership styles, your book goes over, and this kind of jumps to chapter 14. In chapter 14, it gives you, I kind of took bits and pieces out of 6 and 14. So when we go to page, it's on page 244 in your Claywell RN to LPN transitions, and it's important that you know these leadership styles. In your opportunity to succeed, you may see a couple questions. So your leadership styles, the very first one is what they call the Autocratic. Your book goes over democratic, autocratic, and laissez-faire leadership. There's a lot more different leadership styles, but I've left it to this so that it's a little bit easier for you to understand. This is the authoritative. This is the one that tells the employees or the students what they want done and how to do it. And it's basically without getting any advice from other people. Authoritative works well if you don't have much time to accomplish goals, or if the employees are not very well motivated. And generally this style is not a good way to get the best performance from a team, because it's basically, this person it's my way or it's going to be the highway. The democratic is more of a participative type of style, and the leader involves one or more employees and students in the decision-making process. This is basically to determine what to do and how to do it. The leader maintains the final decision-making authority, but allows everyone to be a part of a team. Everyone feels that they have participated, they've contributed. It encourages participation, delegates wisely, and values the group discussion. It motivates by empowering members to direct themselves, and guides with a very loose rein. The negative part is that everything is a matter of group discussion and decision. It doesn't really lead the democratic style. However, democratic leaders always have interest in what the employees would like to see or would like to do in a given situation. The laissez-faire is the last one, and this, or it's also called, or a delegative, non-directive, I think your book also says. The leader allows employees or students to make the decisions. The leader is still responsible for the decisions, but the leader has usually hardly any control. The team has little direction, motivation. The employees or the students analyze the situation and determine what needs to be done and how to do it. The leader does set some priorities and does delegate. Chaos can occur with a laissez-faire, however, if individual needs and agendas interfere with the overall goals of the group. So we're going back to management. Any staff member who bears responsibility for the work of others or who must ensure the completion of an organizational process may be considered a manager. So I think all of us are managers as we guide care. They also guide the processes necessary to accomplish tasks necessary to achieve organizational outcomes. And I think it's kind of easy to remember. This is a quote by Warren Bennis, and it says, "Managers are people who do things right, while leaders are people who do the right thing." I liked that. So this slide goes over followership. Can't say it today. Followership, and how important that is, because it's really not a passive process. You use personal behaviors that contribute to the health care team's goals, and you have to buy into those goals as it is important to the leader and the manager and the follower. Demonstrates collaboration, influence, and interacts with the leader or manager to accomplish goals and outcomes, and should be willing to question, debate, compromise, collaborate, and act as well as be accountable for those actions. So we all, at one time or other, are going to be leaders, managers, or followers. What we do, how we act, is our emotional intelligence towards the role that we're in at that time. And Cooper wants to come back in, so let me just pause and I'll be right back. Okay, back again. So there's different types of leadership. We went over the styles of leadership, but these are the different types, and we're going to go over these specifically. One is transactional, where the traditional boss makes decisions without any staff input. It kind of reminds me when we went over the styles of leadership. It reminds me of the leader who is authoritative. Transformational leader seeks and welcomes input from the staff, very much like the Democratic. And the servant leadership emphasizes service to others. And we'll go over each one of those. So our transactional leader is where the decisions are made without the staff input. Motivates followers in three ways. It offers rewards for the followers, monitors work performance, and corrects the staff member immediately. And it usually waits. The leader will wait till a problem occurs and kind of deals with it later. This type of leadership relies on power and authority to reward or punish performance, and it's usually found in stable work environments. The transactional leader relies on power and authority to reward or punish performance, usually found in more of a stable work environment. This type of leader is very charismatic, inspirational, motivational, intellectually stimulating, and treats others as unique individuals. And research has found In 2006, McGuire and Kennerly found that followers have a higher sense of organizational commitment when working with a type of transformational leader, because usually these types of leaders motivate followers to reach their full potential. This is the kind of leader that brings out the best in people, and we know that. We've worked with people like that we love to be with, because it just motivates and it sparks that fire to learn or to be creative and be part of a team. And we went over that slide there about being charismatic. Our servant leadership, this is the one that emphasizes service to others, including employees, customers, and the community as a first priority. Focuses on the needs of others, emphasizes with them, and is very attentive to the concern of the followers. I want to go back for a minute, because this is the person that builds a lot into the community, and their characteristics are very central to service learning: listening, empathy, healing, awareness, foresight, conceptualism. And that's kind of where we're at in the college and service learning, how important service learning is to the community. And these types of leadership styles, are a lot of times they're just you can have all three of them on any one given situation, or you can have just one person that is just serving all the time, or you can have the transformational leadership. But most of the time you kind of weave in and out of all three. So it's important that we talk a little bit, and you've had ethics last week, and how important ethics is, and leadership itself has a moral or ethical dimension. And remember that ethics examines whether an action is right or an action is wrong. We all face, especially as leaders, many ethical challenges in our nursing practice. There's usually 5 principles of ethical leadership, and leaders have that ethical responsibility to treat others with dignity and respect, and to be sensitive to their interests, their needs, and concerns. Because of the influence that the leader has on the followers, as well as to accomplish those mutual goals and establish organizational values, ethics is central to effective leadership. So the 5 principles of ethical leadership is: we need to serve others. It's important that as a leader, you are serving your patients, you are also serving your LPNs, and you're serving your techs as you go about your daily position. You're showing justice, and you know what justice is now. It's just making sure that it is the right thing to do. You are to respect others. You are to be honest. Admit when you're right. And admit when you're wrong. Those are all important. And it's important that you also build a community within your work environment, and then outside of your work environment. Leaders have the ethical responsibility to treat others with dignity and respect, and to be sensitive to their interests, need, and concern. I think I said that before. So, very important. I don't think we can talk about leadership without talking about professional advocacy. And to be an advocate, you defend or you promote the rights of others. You change systems to meet the needs of others. You empower and promote self-determination in others. And you promote autonomy of diverse cultures and social groups. You ensure respect, equality, and dignity for others, and you care for the humanness of all people, no matter what their circumstance in life is. Cultural competence and leadership extends not only to the recipients of health care, but also extends to the workplace itself. If you look, your cultural competence and leadership is on page 94 in Claywell, and it goes over some different examples of cultural diversity and how we are to welcome the cultural diversity that is among us. Don't be threatened by that cultural diversity, but welcome it. So we look at people's values. Values are different in all of us. We've all been brought up differently. Our belief systems are different. Our customs are different. Practices, races are different, or nationalities, religious affiliation. Our language can be different. We have a different physical size. Some are thin, some are bigger than others, some are taller than others. Our gender, male, female. That's going to cause a cultural diversity. Our sexual orientation, and our age, and whatever disabilities that we have. Your book kind of goes over, I thought it was very interesting, it went over the different generations, from the veteran generation, the baby boom generation, the Generation X, and the millennial generation. And Kit kind of gives you a difference in where they're coming from. But they stated that the generational diversity in the workplace can cause a lot of misunderstandings and conflicts. And being in nursing for 32 years, I can see how that can occur. But it's with leadership and knowing that each generation has its own strength and weakness, that we can all learn from each other to enhance our personal and professional growth and encourage exploration of new and different ways of thinking, and how important that is. So our leadership goals. Leadership style is the manner and the approach of providing direction, implementing plans, and motivating people. Leaders vary their styles. A leader is not strictly one or the other style, like I was telling you before, but most leaders use all three styles. But one style, is going to become the dominant one. Positive leaders use rewards. They use independence or education to motivate their employees. And those negative leaders use penalties with employees. These leaders act domineering and superior with people. Negative penalties includes maybe days without pay, reprimanding in front of others, assigning unpleasant job tasks, those kinds of things. So those are some really good leadership goals and leadership knowledge that you can take with you as you go out from your role of a follower and maybe a manager to a leader of people. Leader of your patients, your families, as you role model for the staff members, the techs. There's no better compliment than people that turn around and say, I want to practice nursing like you do. No better compliment. So we go back to our clinical pearls and we ask the question, what type of leader are you? Know what is important when you become the leader. You have to look at the cultural diversity that's in the group that you're leading. You have to look at the different personalities. You have to look at generational, what can we add, what we can do to help each other. We have to look at the strengths and not the weaknesses of our members. Understand all those people of all different cultures and use your own emotional intelligence when, a lot of times others don't, okay? It's that filter. It can not always be our way. It can't always be our way. That's why we have leaders and we have group decisions made we have decisions made that's going to be best for the group and not just best for you. And base your decisions always on the question, what will benefit patient care, patient outcomes, and overall satisfaction? Okay, that ends our leadership. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.